Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of T.N.T. Garage and Performance. And today in the 101 series, we're going to talk about building a hot rod. And mainly we're going to talk about building something that you can be proud of and that's something that you can get into without losing your passion for the project and stalling out in the middle of it. So, let's get to it. So there's several things when it comes to building a hot rod that you need to take into account before you start your project. Number one is, what do you want to build? You need to have an idea or at least a concept or a genre of hot rod you want to build. Do you want to build a gasser? Do you want to build an old school hot rod? Do you want to build a track monster? Do you want to build a drag car? Those are all considerations that you first need to come up with an idea before you do anything else. You gotta set your expectations high at first. And the reason why I say high at first is because it's gonna lead into number two, which is what is your budget for said hot rod. Now, if you wanna build a drag car that runs in the tens and you only wanna spend a couple $1,000s, can it be done? Yes, but you need to work within your expectations because everything is going to cost more in the end than you think it's going to initially. So, first thing, figure out what you want to build. Two, figure out your budget. Then, once you got figured out kind of what kind of hot rod thing you want to build and how much money you want to spend, you got to figure out what you want to build it out of. So if you have a car that you already have sitting around that you want to work on and you want to build that, great, you're money ahead. Sometimes you got to go out and find something that you want to build, or you have a specific vehicle in mind, which goes right back to your budget. If you want to build a Tri-5 Chevy, you're going to need to have a pretty substantial amount of money to start with to get the vehicle that you want to build your hot rod out of. So now that we've got those three things laid out, what style of vehicle do you want to build? What's your budget? And what kind of vehicle do you want to build it out of? We can get into some more in-depth stuff on how to equip your vehicle, how to go about building it, and stuff like that. So we'll be into that in a second. Okay, now that we talked about the first three things, the next thing is the process of building your vehicle. You've got your budget laid out, you've got your idea for what type of hot rod you want to build, and hopefully you got your platform already. Coming into that, you need to start acquiring parts. You can start getting parts before you get the vehicle if you already have everything in mind, but I got this car first and then got the parts from there. So when it comes to getting the parts you want to accomplish your build, there's a couple ways of doing it. You can go to swap meets, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, or go right to the big parts houses like Summit and Jags and stuff like that. And that all lies within how much money you got budgeted. I prefer to do budget builds where I use as many used or junkyard parts as I can that are good parts, because quite frankly, anyone can build something out of a catalog. It's kind of more fun to make your own puzzle as you go, but I'm never going to knock anyone who's got the budget to build everything with brand new parts, because it's not going to be trouble-free, but it's going to be much more trouble-free than getting a bunch of used parts and trying to make them work. So now that you've got your platform, your budget, you're collecting parts, you need to figure out in what steps you're going to build your vehicle. And that can play a crucial role on if you get burnt out on a project and abandon it in the corner of the shop or your garage for years because you started at one point you weren't ready to start with. So let's move on to that being the next thing of the process of the build. Now, as far as the process goes, I'm going to speak from my own personal experience, and I know your mileage may vary when it comes to building something, but if you try to do too much all at once, you're going to get burnt out on your project and it's going to go in the corner, or you're going to get into something that you're not sure you know how to do and it's going to get in the corner. So first thing to do when you have all the stuff that you want to build your project, or at least you have enough to start with, is really nail down your determination. How bad do you want this hot rod? Because you better want it bad enough to keep working on it. Otherwise, well, it's just going to be taking up space. So in my experience, the first thing I started with was the car itself. I didn't worry about the powertrain or any of that. I was collecting parts because I knew I wanted a 4-speed in this car. So I went and found a 4-speed. I wanted to run a big block in this car, but the one I got needs a lot of work, and I'm just going to build a really good motor out of what I got instead of just doing a budget build on that. So I went ahead and, I knew I had this small block that I built for another project, makes plenty of power. So we went with that. So I started with the car itself. Now, this car was a bigger basket case than most of you guys will attempt to build something out of. But I'm not saying avoid the basket cases. If I can do it, you absolutely can. And I've just got rudimentary tools. So you start with the car, figuring out, can I even build this thing? You're going to go through it. You're going to look at it. You're going to find a lot of stuff you didn't know when you start tearing into the body and the chassis, or if you have a unibody car, once you start taking stuff apart and looking in areas and seeing where you really need to start. Because sometimes you'll get into something, you'll realize it's way worse and not worth the effort if you could just go out and find a better example. So that's why I always start with the car instead of starting to put all this stuff into it and realize, I got to take it all apart because I found this area in the vehicle that's just not good. I don't have the skills to fix it. And then you're stuck tearing everything all back apart. So start with your chassis is the most important part, because this is your running gear. This is the part that's going to keep you safe. You can bolt a seat and a harness to a bare frame and be relatively safe if you don't flip it over. The frame is the thing that you need to worry about first. And mine, the chassis is custom built, the first 2/3 of it. Most of the time, you're not going to run into this. But if you do, it can be done. You can build it. All you need, like I had, is a welder, a level, measuring tools, and patience. So once you start with the chassis, get that where you need it to be, then you can move on to the body. And depending on what you want to do with the body, that is going to take quite a bit of work. If you want like a nice, clean, beautiful paint job on a really smooth body that's nice and solid, that's going to be a lot more work than just kind of building a rat rod like this, which this car is a rat rod in the sense that all the exterior sheet metal is pretty much original. Everything that's not on the outside of this car is brand new sheet metal. So this was a lot more work than most people are willing to do, but this is a hard to find car and there's no parts for it. So that's why I went this far on this project. But on yours, if you got a decent body or one that you can get parts for, like a Tri-5 Chevy or an F-body or most Mopars or old Fords, you're going to be able to get metal that just lays right in and you can weld it in. So that are the first two things you really, in my opinion, you want to get your chassis and body sorted out first and get everything set up, ready to do your powertrain and everything that goes along with that, your wiring and so on and so forth. So we're going to get next into setting up your powertrain and stuff like that if you haven't guessed already. Okay, regardless of what you're building and what you want for a powertrain, you need to figure out, what kind of power do you want to make, how do you want it to drive, and how you're going to get it in your chassis. Me, I'm insane. So everything in this car is solid mounted. The body's solid mounted to the chassis. The engine is solid mounted to the chassis. The only thing that has any kind of isolator in it at all is my transmission mount, which is polyurethane. So you need to get your drivetrain laid in. And if you don't have knowledge already on how to set up your drivetrain as far as your drive shaft angles and things like that, thankfully today there's so many forums and Facebook groups and stuff that can help you out there. So you got to figure out where everything's going to lay in your vehicle. So this car in particular, these came with a small block Chevy. They were optioned with either the Chevy Straight 6 or the small block in the mid years. The late years, these came with a V6 or a small block, but you need to figure out where you want everything to sit, because if you are changing motors or swapping from what originally came in it or doing what I did, going with a motor plate style mount, you don't really know where it's going to sit, and if you get ahead of yourself, you're going to have to move it anyway, kind of like I did in this car, which wasn't a big deal, but I ended up getting ahead of myself, putting the mid plate in before I had the body completely where it was going to wind up, and I ended up having to move it. So just know that to have your car set up and ready for it, to where you're not going to be making any changes to the chassis or body. Then you can start setting your drivetrain in. How deep do you want to set your engine? If you think you got it deep enough, well, go to the front, make sure you have room for your accessories and your radiator and your electric fans or mechanical fans or however you're going to run it. And then also make sure you have clearance for your brakes, your steering, and all that. I lucked into a lot of this just from previous experience and knowledge and just being able to visualize things in my head really well, that before I even put the headers in or the engine, I kind of had an idea where everything needed to go. And it also had some measuring to go along with it, because I dropped the pedal box and the steering column and everything 2 inches, and it worked out perfect. So when you're laying your drivetrain in, be mindful of where everything's going to go. You can pack it up, you can loosen it out, but just know, no matter what you're putting in your vehicle, even if it came with it originally, sometimes you're still going to run into issues. So just be sure that when you're putting together your project. So now that we got the drivetrain and the real hard parts, we went through the idea, the vehicle, the budget, what to start with first, starting with your chassis, making sure it's going to be safe, stiff, strong, drive well, your body going on it, how clapped out your body is, how much work you're going to have to put into it, if any, and getting all that set up before you put your drivetrain in and end up having to rework everything. As I was making this video, another point had kind of popped into my head, and that's when you're building something like your powertrain, your frame, your body, be prepared to assemble it and take it apart several times, because you got to make it, test fit it, take it apart, clean it up, finish it, put it back together. And there's going to be things that you initially build and put it together, take it apart, go to put it back together, and it ain't going to fit. So just know you're going to take stuff apart a lot, and you're probably going to have to do some modifications. So keep that in mind as well when you're building your hot rod. So next, we're going to move on to the most important part of any build, that's more important than money, more important than the vehicle itself, and that is the drive and the skills you need to build your own hot rod. So let's get into that in a second. Well, like I just said, the most important part of any build isn't so much even your skill or ability level. It's your determination. It's your stick-to-itiveness, your ability to stay focused on the project at hand. There's so many builds I see for sale on Facebook Marketplace that would otherwise be simple builds. And LS swaps, a lot of LS swap vehicles get halfway there and then wind up on Marketplace, whether it be for lack of budget or lack of motivation. And the big thing is when you're building something, you're probably not me. I don't have, my son is going to graduate this year, and I'll live by myself. So I have all the time in the world when I'm not driving over the road to just lock myself in the garage and put my nose to the grindstone. Some of you other people are going to have families and people that need your attention, or things, or businesses, other stuff, taking your attention away from your project. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's balancing your time and learning to really enjoy building your project. If you ever look out your garage and go, oh, I gotta do that, well, maybe you should be building a hot rod. I mean, there are times that it's like there's some things that are monotonous on a project, but if the whole process is just a burden, maybe buy one that's already done. But as far as keeping your motivation going throughout a project, wherever you're at on a project, if you're working on the chassis, try to work on one area at a time. If you're working with the rear suspension, stick with that. Don't bounce forward and go, well, I need to put my motor mounts in. Just whatever area you're in, keep working at it. Take breaks if you need it. You don't have to sit there and keep grinding out, because you will burn yourself out on that specific aspect. And if you run into issues that you can't figure out, that's what the internet's for. There's so many guys out there willing to help, myself included, when it comes to any kind of project, and our collective knowledge as hot rodders is enough to give anyone the confidence to build a hot rod, whether you've turned a wrench before or not. So keeping in mind the motivation you need and sticking with one area at a time. My very first project on this car, other than pulling the body off when I first got in the garage, was doing these radius wheel openings. And I started with the other side, and I stuck with it till I had that whole quarter completed. And then I came over to this side so I could match everything side to side. And it was much easier doing this side after already doing that side. So if you're doing something like that where you're mirroring it, just getting through one part of it helps you a lot on the back side of it. So that is just the motivation. Just don't give up. That's the one thing I could say. Don't give up on your project. It's not as hard as you think, unless you're doing some high-end super metal fabrication thing and you don't have the experience. Then you might have bitten off more than you can chew. So just be mindful of what you're getting yourself into. That's one thing. What's your skill level, which is the next thing we're going to get into. You don't need to be a master fabricator. You don't need to be a master mechanic to build something like this. I do have an extensive experience in mechanical, of working on cars and everything that goes along with it, but that doesn't mean I had fabrication experience. That doesn't mean that I was a great A+ welder. I could stick two pieces of metal together at best when I first started this project. And luckily for me, I had friends that I could go to and call at a moment's notice to ask them questions about the finer points of welding, especially structural stuff like the chassis. So if you have, say, a welder and you don't have experience, the only way you're going to get experience is asking questions and doing it. Just because it seems like it's a little too much doesn't mean you can't try. There's no problem with trying and failing, because it's the only way we learn. Nobody gets it right on a first try every time. So don't be afraid to try and not succeed, because you will get there. And as far as other skills go, you don't have to build your own engine like I did. You don't have to, go through all the stuff setting up the front suspension like I did. You can get a running engine. You can get bolt-on suspension components, stuff that's just nut and bolt. You don't have to have a super excessive amount of skills to get it done. As far as tools go, I would recommend, at the very least, if you're going to build a vehicle like this, you want a welder, you want a full set of hand tools. You want sockets, ratchets, wrenches, screwdrivers, pliers, vice grips. You want an electric angle grinder. It's fine to use an air one, like I have my little quarter horse angle grinder, but having an electric one's going to make things a lot easier. Have cutoff wheels, have flat discs, have hard stones. All the stuff you need to modify, cut, and rebuild. That's very good to have. Otherwise, I've got a bandsaw, which makes my life a lot easier, but you don't need a bandsaw. You don't need a drill press. You should have hand drills, of course, and a good selection of drill bits. So when it comes to tools to build a project, really the only specialty thing I would really recommend you have or have access to is a welder. And sometimes you don't even need that, depending on the vehicle you're building. Say if you're building a 3rd gen, 4th gen, or any F-body Camaro where parts are readily available, it's really bolt-on stuff. You're not going to do so much cutting and welding unless you're doing sheet metal work. Now, getting deeper into the weeds, if you're going to be doing sheet metal work, body repairs, patch panels, stuff like that, go ahead and get yourself a set of body hammers from Harbor Freight, because it's going to help you when you're shaping all this. As far as body work experience, I've got the experience to, smooth something out, put body filler on it, not too much, but do it the right way, sand it out, prep it, get it where it needs to be. I don't have a whole lot of experience other than this car doing stuff like this. And that's where a lot of YouTube, I suggest Paintucation with Kevin Tates. Watch him when it comes to body repair, welding, working metal, stuff like that. And I learned a lot from him, and I just decided to get the tools and learn along with him. So any skill you might lack before building your car, you will gain by building your car. But just know, if you're not sure about something, especially when it comes to safety, your chassis, and stuff like that, ask questions. Nobody's ever gonna, talk you down to you because you ask a question about something. And if they do, they don't belong in the automotive community. So just know that the answers are out there, and don't be afraid to take something on. I did say earlier, you might get in over your head, but you can work through it. It's just, what is your discipline level? I mean, you don't have to build a car as fast as I did. This car took me 13 months from a basket case to running and driving going down the road. That's working full time, but I'm psychotic, and when I get into something, I get into something. And some of you are like that too. So this car is not done yet, but it's running and driving. Which brings me to my next point. It doesn't have to be perfect. If it's what you enjoy, it does not have to be perfect. It is your car, not everybody else's at the car show. So don't worry about what other people are going to think, as long as it gets you where you want to go and you have fun doing it. That's the big thing. Remember, at the end of the day, it's your car. And like with this one, I got it to where I could drive it, have fun with it, and work on it as I do it, which is the main thing. And David Freiberger says this all the time. Don't get it right, just get it running. Because having something that you can play with as you work on it is much more of a motivator than having something that just takes up a spot in your garage, that you're trying to get every little nut and bolt and every body panel and all the paint perfect and all this before you even fire it up or drive it. And that just seems like the end of the tunnel keeps getting further and further away, because the more you dig in, the more you find, the more you find, the more you fix, the more you fix, the more you modify. And it just gets into this never-ending process of never getting your car on the road. So get it to the point where you can drive it safely and drive it and work on it, because then you're going to learn more. You're going to learn what's really necessary to get done, and what's like, I'll get around to it, but at least I can drive it. So that's one thing to really keep in mind, is just get it so you can have fun with it. I mean, part of the building a project is fun, but what's even more fun is doing all the work on the project and then being able to turn the key and take it out. That's the best part. So I think I covered all the bases. I didn't want to get super in depth with this video. I want to keep it fairly 101-ish for you guys, especially those of you who haven't built a car and lack the confidence to build one. So let's wrap this video up with my final thoughts, and hopefully, you guys kind of get a perspective on building your own hot rod. Well, I know this was a little shorter video, but I just wanted to kind of take my experience with building a hot rod and my knowledge and kind of put it out there for you guys, just so you know that you don't have to be the world's best builder. You don't have to do anything special to build something, even like this. This took a lot of work to build because I was willing to do it. There are so many people that looked at this car when I bought it. You guys can look, if you go back and see the very first few videos when I brought this home and started taking it apart, that this car was absolutely trashed. There was, in no other universe was there a day that this car would drive under its own power again, or even move unless it was going into the crusher. So that being said, don't let anyone doubt you. Really, when you're building your project, the only thing that could get in your way is you, and don't let that happen. And don't care what anyone else says or how much you're going to doubt your ability to build a car. I guarantee there's 98% of people that saw this and go, that'll never run. That'll never go down the road. And, prove them wrong. And if it makes you happy, or, you get it running and driving, even if it's rudimentary and you can go around the block once, you can take that satisfaction in knowing that you put it together. And that's the fun of building hot rods, is just taking something and throwing a little imagination at it and making something cool out of it. It doesn't matter what you build. It doesn't even have to be an American car. You could build a European hot rod. You could build a Japanese hot rod. Hot rodding today is such a glorious thing because it encompasses all things. No one's going to look down on you for going to a car show with, a Japanese car that's really got some thought and, cool things done to it by using your own imagination to put your own personality in your project. And that's what makes a hot rod, as a loose term, a hot rod is the car is a reflection of the person who built it. This car is a reflection of me, I guess. It's kind of a pile of crap on the outside. On the inside, it's pretty good. It's got a big heart, and it tries hard, and it's loud and obnoxious. So, right on the money. So there you go, guys. Hopefully, this gives you a little inspiration and a little can-do-it attitude when it comes to it. A lot of guys who love to build a hot rod, just watch YouTube, or guys like me, or guys that are obviously way more popular, and they go, I could never do that. The thing is, you can. You just have to want to do it, and once you get started, you're going to have an uphill climb, but it's going to get easier as you go. Don't be afraid to do it, because you see people that film videos that do it, you go, oh, I could never do that. Well, you can. If I can do it, you can absolutely do it. Don't ever think that you don't possess the ability. Now, if you don't possess the budget or something like that, that's understandable. But there's other ways you can go about building something on a budget. I mean, this car is less than $5,000, including the cost of the car. So you can build some pretty decent stuff on a budget. Go buy if you just want something that's got a V8 and cool, go buy an old Caprice or something and hop it up a little bit. Do something kind of cool to it. You don't have to spend a lot of money to be happy with what you built. And building something cheap and easy and doing a quick project first is the gateway drug into being able to build a full out hot rod, because you give yourself the confidence and you give yourself the time to save up for your new project. So, like I said, hopefully you enjoyed this kind of shorter 101 on building hot rods. Go ahead and look at the whole playlist of this build if you kind of have any questions, or how did I do something or something like that. It's all in there. I tried to document as much really important parts like the front suspension and stuff like that as I could, so you guys can go back and learn and kind of figure out how I did it and modify, or just see how everyone's doing it and get a consensus. So go ahead and check that out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Help the channel grow so I can keep trying to educate people and give people inspiration and just be a good positive part of the car culture, because most people in the car culture are positive and we like to shed a light on those people. So go ahead and do all that. You can follow me on social media. The links are down in the description. And well, I guess until next time, remember, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. We'll see you soon.